None. You just observe it, or rather, well, I won't say it's no response. It's always a response. You respond by silence. But you do observe it and take note of it. That one white person is calling another white person, and you suspect both of them could be racist, but one is calling another a racist. So you just observe that and take note. And if you make reference to it at all in the future, you always point out, not that that person who was called a racist is a racist, you point out that another white person said that that person is a racist. Always make sure you include both parties, all right, if they're white. That this white person called this other white person a racist. Now, if they ask you, what do you have to say about that person saying that about the other person? You say, I just told you. That's it. He said that this lady or this gentleman is a racist. Mr. So-and-so says that Mr. So-and-so is a racist. And they say, well, what do you have to say about it? Well, that's what I just told you. You just keep repeating the same thing. Mm-hmm. See, in a code, you keep repeating the same thing.
Okay.
You don't deviate from what you say.
Mm-hmm.
You rock onto it and just keep riding it. I don't care how many times you ask you a question, the answer is always the same. That's codification. Because now if the person asks me, what do I think about both persons, I'll say, well, what the code requires me to think. And if the person asks me, well, what does the code require you to think? According to the code that I have written, I'm required, Neely Fuller, to say, I suspect both of them are racist if they're classified as white in a racist system. Mm-hmm. Why? Based on logic. Because I don't have a master list of who is a racist and who is not. And I do know that I'm not qualified in the system of white supremacy to call a white person a racist and prove it. And why is that? Because there's nobody I can prove it by except another white person. And anybody who tries to do other than that is going to discover that sometimes with a great shock. If you're black in the system of white supremacy and you call a white person a racist, and that white person says, okay, you call me a racist with your black self. Now, prove that I'm a racist. Okay? That's the moment of truth. You, as a black person, according to the code, better run and find a white person who will verify that this white person is a racist.
Okay.
Because you, as a black person, cannot prove that a white person is a racist. In particular, when you start name calling and whatnot. If a black person calls a white person a racist, stop and think about it, folks. Stop and think about it. You do have the power to do that, to call that white person a racist. But now here's where you get a wake-up call. Prove it. Prove it. All that white person has to say is, okay, you called me a racist, buddy. All right, prove it.
Okay, so now...
Prove it. I mean, where is your proof, and who are you going to prove it by?
Okay.
You don't have nobody that can prove it other than another white person, which is the same as the other white person now making the decision about whether or not I'm a racist.
Okay.
That's the way that works. That's a wake-up call about the reality of white supremacy.
Yes, sir.
If you're black, you can't even prove the existence of white supremacy.
Okay.
Why? Because you're a prisoner of war of the system of white supremacy. That's why. You just point out the person by name that called Mr. Trump a racist. That white person that called Mr. Trump a racist, you say he said that Mr. Trump is a racist. I'm not saying he's a racist, because if you say it, now you have put yourself in that ballpark of having to prove it. And if you're black in the system of white supremacy, it's impossible for you to prove that a white person is a racist. You better go and get you another white person to call that white person that you just called a racist. Get that white person to say, back you up, so to speak, to say, yes, that person is a racist. Then you can say, that's my proof. Because you can't go and get another black person. If you can do that, here's the logic. Stop and think about it. If a black person could walk into a factory and say, you know what? I think these white people in this factory are all racist. Now, what does that mean? That means absolutely nothing. Zero.
Because
you're a prisoner of war of the system of white supremacy. And it takes a white person to prove, in words, the existence of racism. And anybody who ever tries it will find that out. You don't have to listen to Neely Fuller. Just try it. Just try it on your job to prove that a white person is a racist. And you don't have another white person to back you up. Because you can go and get every black person in that factory to say, yeah, they're all racist. Now stop and think about the logic of that. If they allowed black people to do that, what would happen? It would mean that they would be giving up the position of being white supremacists. That's the whole point of white supremacy. You don't let a black person do anything of any significance without your approval. Period. And certainly when it comes to calling them names, you got to have their approval for that name to stick.
Okay.
That's white supremacy. That's proof of the existence right there. You can't get a black person, no matter how many black people say, I agree, I agree, I agree. And just one white person will say, I don't agree with none of you Negroes.
Okay.
On nothing. Out of here, all of you, back to yourselves, and shut up.